Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. Today we're back on the first update 1.93 dev server, and it's time to have a look at the ZTZ96. This is the new Chinese top tier vehicle that is coming into the game in update 1.93. You can see it's coming after the ZTZ59D1 and joins the Chinese line, I suppose you would call it. Well, depending on what you believe in. But anyway, another thing I do want to point out, at least on the dev server right now, there was obviously a lot of talk about the flags when it came to China, and especially when it came to its history. Well, at least on the dev server right now, you can see that there are two separate flags when it comes to the Chinese tech tree. So you can see here, you have the one which is at least seen nowadays, and then you have this one. So the ROC and the PLC are being represented on both sides of the equation. I know a lot of people were worried about this, or a lot of people were, they didn't like the fact that it seemed like the ROC were kind of forgotten about. Well, at least for now, on the dev server, they do have the separate flags. Moving on to the ZTZ96. It's a rank 6 battle rating 9.7 Chinese vehicle, and it won't be the highest tier in the game yet. There are a few Chinese vehicles that are coming in the future that will be at that 10.3 mark, but this one is much more like the Soviet T-72 or something similar to that. So throwing it at 9.7 makes a bit more sense. It has access to the 125mm Type 88C. This gives it access to a two-plane stabilizer and also an autoloader. The ZTZ96 goes down to 3 crew members, so it loses the manual loader in favor of what looks like a carousel loaded system. That means that it has a standard reload rate of 7.5 seconds, and no matter what your crew skill is, that isn't going to change, so that is a constant. It has 6 degrees worth of gun depression, which isn't great, especially for normally a top tier 10 degrees is what you try and aim for, and also on top of that, when we generally look at it, another thing is that there is just a ton of fuel tanks on the side of this vehicle, and I've got a feeling that artillery is really going to love hitting these fuel tanks and also hitting this carousel through this armor, which isn't very thick on the sides. 8mm, and then underneath you have 50mm. I've got a feeling that this thing's going to set on fire quite a lot thanks to this line of fuel tanks. The general crew is that you get a driver in the front right here, who's next to a fuel tank, which is covering some of the first stage ammo stowage, which is 22 pieces. Looks like it's 2-stage ammunition, so you've got the little bit down here and then a little bit at the front, and of course the interesting fuel tank. You've got a fuel tank back here as well, and then on top of that the engine. Now the engine is 730 horsepower, and it is also connected by this exhaust system, and at least from early tests, if you hit these exhaust systems on the end, it seems to cripple the whole engine. So it might be really easy to knock this engine out. Like whenever you penetrate the front, if it doesn't kill you, which generally it should, but if it doesn't, the engine is going to always get hit. It's also got this transmission giving the machine 57 kilometers an hour forward and only 7.2 backwards. So it's really going to struggle in the reverse, very similar to its Soviet friends. Then the key thing about the ZTZ though is the armor. The armor that it gets over its compatriots is actually pretty nice. It's got this turret here which has cast homogeneous, quartz, and also cast homogeneous again. So 140 to 75, 115mm, and 280 to 200 on the turret cheeks. No real composite in the center though, so you can just shoot straight through the gun breech. Then on the front, it has rolled homogeneous, Textilite, and also rolled homogeneous again. So 60, 105mm, and 50mm worth of protection. If you want to see how much protection that's going to give you, let's do it against one of its compatriots, I suppose. We could do the Leopard 2K with its DM13. So the DM13, you can see one of the big problems already is this lower glacis for this machine is only 96 millimeters all across. So that is going to get penetrated all day if it's ever, allowed out. Then the top bit though, the upper glacis, is looking a hell of a lot better. 894 millimeters for this upper glacis, and you can see it's all across. So the armor is doing an incredible job at keeping this thing alive and kicking when it comes to its upper glacis. The turret cheeks as well, 712 to 720 on it. So the turret cheeks and this upper glacis are incredibly strong, but the problem is, as usual, like you can't even shoot this area, it doesn't say. Or you can shoot it, it just doesn't do anything. Looks like it actually shatters a shell in a weird way. The problem though is, just like every other top tier vehicle, the breech itself has quite a large gaping hole in it, meaning that it's 160 on one side and 57 on the other. If I was going to hazard a guess, I would say that this armor is not ready, meaning that there are a little bits to it which seem a little bit odd to me when it comes to its general usability. Like the fact that it's very low here and also around the turrets, it's like incredibly high in these areas, like 721, but right next door it's getting absolutely nothing. The turret ring is pretty well covered, but you can sneak a shell in there, and it turns out it's 21 millimeters, so you could kill it with the majority of AA that you find. And the sides is just nothing to write home about, like 50 millimeters across, and then the sides of the turret 57, and then of course the back, which is 50 millimeters all the way. So the really strong armor on the front is not negated by the rest of the armor, but the thing is, if you can get hull down with this machine, and if you can wiggle your turret a bit so they can't just shoot you straight through the breech, you're going to have a pretty good time. But if you are in any other position, you're going to get low glacis, you're going to get shot through the side, you're going to get shot through the back, and that wonderful carousel loader is going to take so much damage like it normally does from these situations. So yeah, it's definitely got its strong points and obviously its weak points as well. The other thing as well, modifications wise, it has access to NVDs, and I do actually want to test this because I have been fooled before when it comes to the night vision usefulness. So we'll just go at night and test out the stuff. Then we'll have a look at the ammunition and also its camouflages, which for me are pretty baller. I think the Chinese camouflages are some of my favorite. So we have night vision in the turret. We can turn that off. Oh, sorry, we have night vision in 3D, as you can see. Night vision for the commander as well, and also you have night vision for the gunner. The driver also has night vision, so everyone has night vision, but no thermals, which is a bit of a problem, but at least it's better than nothing, right? It's a 9.7 vehicle, so you're going to face a lot of things which have access to thermals, and therefore it might become a bit of a problem. The ammunition is really fascinating, actually. So first of all, you start off with this DPT-125. It's a standard heat FS round, 900 meters per second muzzle velocity, 480, 416, 240, and then you have a HE shell. Now, the HE shell itself has a lot of explosive mass, 3.55, with a TNT equivalent of 5.46, but it only pens 45 millimeters. This, to me, is going to be the cupola wrecker, kind of like how the Soviets have their HE. This is the Chinese equivalent. And then, as a rank 4 modification, you have the 125i, which pens really well. 466, 404, 269. This will go through the majority of things that you face, and also, aiming for weak spots, it will definitely go through. Wonderful muzzle velocity as well, 1730. So really, really like this round. Has a laser rangefinder, which is always good, especially at this level. Has access to smoke grenades and DSS as well, just to keep this thing alive. 23.7 degrees per second of gun traverse as well, or turret traverse, which helps it out a lot. And the skins, as I said, at least for me, when it comes to these Chinese vehicles, are my favorite part. So we've got the green, yellow, black, the tricolor desert, which is lovely, the basic desert, which is basic, the tricolor, which is just wonderful. Look at that skin. Absolutely amazing. And then the winter camouflage as well. So yeah, the ZTZ is definitely looking good, in my opinion, when it comes to the, at least, aesthetics. The only question is it going to have the same issues as a lot of the other like Soviet MBTs? Basically this is an extension Let's just see if we can cupola something with the HE. This is obviously an extension of a Soviet MBT. It's got the 125mm, it's got very similar rounds, it's got very, very similar design choices, even though this is wholly made in China. It does have also the 12.7 on top of it. Are you kidding me? So that's nice as anti-air and also anti-light vehicle, and of course the coaxial, which is lovely too. It looks like you can't as cupola trap as easy with this gun as some other ones, so that is kind of sad. You can see that you can still do it like that, but it's definitely not as powerful as the ones from the Soviet machines. So the other thing as well is you can see that there is a little hole there, or something that's supposed to open when the shell gets fired, but unfortunately it doesn't yet. Hopefully that animation comes at some point in the future. I'm sure it will. And the other thing to also mention is the speed. Come on, baby. The speed is just not, there. One of the issues that the T-64s have, and had when they first came out, is they started going up against stuff like Abrams and Leopard 2Ks, which were incredibly fast, very European MBTs, which were built for speed, firepower, and also crew survivability. The Soviet TDs, at least in the game, feel very much more measured in their approach when it comes to speed, and this Chinese one kind of exemplifies that. We can get up to about 37, but most of the time facing MBTs which are easily going at 50 at this point of view, definitely at this point of time, means that I would say that's quite a distinct disadvantage for this machine just going forward. Even though it can easily tear apart anything that it really faces, as you can see, the gun itself is incredibly good at firing at weak spots and being able to go through everything. It's a very stabilized gun. It's actually quite low to the ground as well, compared to a lot of other MBTs. The killer for me, which has been the problem with the Soviet vehicles and now the Chinese ones, the traverse. The traverse is absolutely awful if you compare it to the other top tier MBTs, and even on the move, it's still not good, And at least it's better with this machine than the other Chinese vehicles, which have really struggled in the past when it comes to turning their turrets and getting guns on targets. But still, we're lacking the maneuverability which a top tier MBT needs. Compare this to the Vickers Mark 7. The Vickers Mark 7, a lot of people are praising for it coming into the game and coming in as one of these vehicles which has decent firepower, but the main thing people are focusing on is the maneuverability. Well, with this machine, it's lacking in that regard, and unfortunately, that's not good. You need the maneuverability to keep up with stuff like Leopard 2A4s, 2A5s, which is something you are going to see all day, every day at 9.7. It does get 3 lots of smoke though, which is really nice. Generally, these top tier MBTs only get 2 lots of smoke, so there is a nice advantage there for it. And also, the gun is very powerful. Just like the other guns on the Soviet machines, it is going to be able to put a lot of holes in a lot of things, and also you don't have to worry about crew skills to have a half-decent reload. Now, the other thing as well is, of course, the reverse that we talked about before. It's just not good. So, I hope this vehicle does well. I'm just really worried about the overall maneuverability of it. I just don't think it will be able to keep up with the other MBTs that we see in the game at top tier. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank Ambrosius McClellan, B. Young, Blackie, Daniel Stanton, Jay Wilt, John Ryman, Joseph Anders, Martinez, Moxie, Super Cacti, Uyans Terry, Elove Goat, and Seductive Trash Can for supporting the channel.